Today, on the 19th of March 2024, on the next weekly reset, Bungie is going to be releasing the Slammer, the new adept sword that will be available through the Grandmaster Nightfalls. And this week's strike is going to be the Corrupted. So today I'm going to tell you how to very quickly, easily, and efficiently farm this thing to get your God Roll Slammer, because in theory, this Slammer is going to be one of the best swords in the game. Starting off with the loadout recommendations, it's important to consider the elements of the Corrupted Strike, because this strike is easy when you break it down to its core. For starters, you have to deal with two things: overload unstoppable champions, you have to deal with a whole heck of a lot of taken enemies, and a little bit of scorn enemies at the very beginning of the strike. And you have to figure out a way to deal with high density crowds of constantly respawning enemies, that being Scions, Takens, Wizards spawning Taken, Thrall, and enemies that are just going to rush you like the Taken do. With that, there are two main theories on how to approach build crafting as it relates to this strike. Either A, you have a build that can sit back very comfortably from a long distance and take out the hard to deal with majors, that being champions and wizards and Taken knights, or you can get up close and personal and rely on things like health regeneration and damage resistance to just absolutely shred your way through these smaller crowds of enemies and slowly chip away at these big targets. So, here's what I'm going to recommend. If you want this to be as easy as humanly possible, pick yourself an auto rifle, because it can run overload, and pick yourself Polaris Lance. If you do not have Polaris Lance, use Sunshot. If you do not have Sunshot, use Malfeasance. Polaris Lance, Sunshot, and Malfeasance are going to carry you through the strike. Malfeasance does a little bit of everything. Polaris Lance is better than Malfeasance, in my opinion, when dealing with these types of enemies, because not only with the seasonal artifact mods, the Radiant Light, the Rays of Precision, you are getting everything you need, basically, and you just having that auto rifle for overload wherever you need it. That, and you run a heavy weapon, either run a machine gun or run a rocket launcher. My choice is going to be Apex Predator. If you are a hunter, you should be running either Celestial Nighthawk or Shards of Galanor. You're gonna want to be running Solar wherever possible. Arc isn't good this week. Stasis is less than optimal. You don't need Strand unless you're doing it exclusively for overload or unstopped champion stopping. But then again, if you're running a Solar build with ignitions, these aren't going to be a problem at all. So just run either Celestial Nighthawk or Shards of Galanor. Solar is currently the best subclass in the entire game for doing these endgame PvE activities. You're going to need the healing grenades. You're going to need Solar. It's a great time. If you are a Warlock, take a wild guess what I'm going to say. Run Solar. You should either be using a Well Radiance build or using Dawn Chorus, something that just makes your Solar better. Like I said before, Void is suboptimal for this activity, so is Arc. If you're using Strand Warlock for the anti-champion functionality, you really don't need to, in my opinion, and Stasis Warlock has not been good in PvE for as long as I can remember. And for Titan, take a wild guess what I'm going to say. That's right, Void. Just kidding, Solar. Use Solar, use a hammer build. You can either use Consecration to have your big hammer or use your throwing hammers just to get that long range poke off. I'm telling you, just having triple Solar is just going to make everything so much easier. Being able to combo Radiance, Restoration, it might be a tiny bit slower than doing your perfectly oriented top 1% builds, but for the vast majority of people, just running a triple Solar loadout with heals everywhere, spamming Restoration, spamming sunspots, spamming wells, spamming supers, it's going to be good. It's going to be the best way to get through this as easy as possible. Now onto the actual encounter by encounter guide to get through the Corrupted Nightfall. As you notice, I didn't even bother talking about the first bit because it doesn't get complicated until you enter the elevator. Luckily for us, the elevator is very, very predictable. The only thing you need to consider is that the Scions need to die. You can kill them very, very quickly if you have splash damage. The only thing with the Scions is that they're going to constantly respawn. In GM Nightfalls, their timer for respawning seems like they respawn every half a second if you do not kill them all. That, and you can keep a ball charged while you're fighting these enemies. The only thing is, as you just saw, your ball will cancel your super, so just keep that in mind. Make sure to kill the Scions early, and then just take your time killing all the little guys. You can kill them one by one, or you can use the ball to break the shields all at once, and then hit them with your supers. As I say all the time, do not save your supers for final shape. Use them almost as often as they come up, because it is pointless trying to wait for them all. When you get to the second main combat arena, that being this area that switches between the Dreaming City and the Taken Nightmare, what you can do is you can stand where my fire team is currently standing right now in the back of the room, just where you come up these stairs and shoot from a distance all of the other enemies that come out. No, it is very important that you kill all of the champions before you kill the mini-bosses, because in either realm, once you kill the bosses, the champions will despawn. We messed up on this particular run and didn't kill the champions before we killed the bosses, and we ended up losing out on the Adept Awards for this particular run. Once you're done with that arena, take your time, clear out the Taken Acolyte snipers, clear out all the Taken Hobgoblin snipers, make sure that you're killing everything that has a champion bar on it, and moving on to the next section. We have the first of two boss arenas. With this boss arena, you can sit on the platform just before you actually jump into the boss arena. Where you see me standing now is not where you want to stand. The only time you're going to be coming over here is once you've killed all of the ads and it is safe to move up. But where you see me standing now, this area is going to be mainly safe against every single ads. The only thing to consider when you're standing where I'm standing right now is that once the boss is phased past half health and has moved into the second arena, this area is going to turn into a turn back zone and will kill you if you are standing on it after 5 seconds. This was fixed, so you can't just camp here forever, but you can camp here as long as the boss is in the arena. And obviously, kill all the ads, kill all the scions, the knights, everything that spawns before you actually go and attempt to break Sadia's shield, before you attempt to actually progress the fight. Once you get through that section of the boss arena, you basically are doing a jumping puzzle through the Taken Realm. The only thing I can say here is be careful for the rocks and make sure that you're not rushing past the champions, otherwise they're going to kill you like you see now. But this was just because I was dumb and stood in the Taken Nightfire. The Taken Nightfire is one of the most lethal things in the strike. It is very important to consider that before moving on. Once we've traversed through the Taken Nightmare Realm, we are on the final boss. No more champions are going to spawn right here. All we have to deal is with a Taken Captain and a couple Scions. If you can kill the Scions as they spawn, they will not respawn. And once all the enemies are dead, you can very easily do the boss mechanic of picking up, charging the ball, throwing it, breaking the shield, and getting through. The boss is 2 health gates. Once you break the first health gate, a second wave is going to spawn, so just keep that in mind. And at this point, you are basically done with the strike. People say that this thing is hard. It's just a little bit time consuming if you're playing with a team that isn't coordinated, but with the right team, you can get this done in around 15 minutes, 10 if you're quick, maybe 20 if you're a little bit slow. This run, we had a lot of deaths. This run was recorded near the beginning of the season. This isn't actually me playing now. But now it is time to talk about the Adept Slammer and all of the roles that I am looking for. So we are here on D2 Foundry looking at the Slammer Adept and its potential roles. Now this one I can't exactly show you in game yet because it's not yet available, but for perks column 1 and 2, standard sword perks, in my opinion, you're going to want to maximize the amount of ammo you have just so you can be in the fight taking advantage of that bait and switch for longer, and you want a guard that maximizes the charge rate of your sword, because with a sword like this, you are not going to be guarding, you just want your vortex spin to be up as much as possible. That means you need as high of a charge rate as possible. So, in my opinion, the 2 best edge and guard combinations we're going for is going to be Hungry Edge, just so you can get that whole lot of extra ammo, and Swordmaster's Guard, because Swordmaster's Guard is the only one that is going to positively impact your charge rate, and that extra plus 10 to charge rate is going to mean you can use a full maxed out Vortex Frame heavy attack that much more often. Now, with perk column 3, we have Attrition Orbs, Relentless Strikes, Eager Edge, Pugilist, Chain Reaction, and Thresh. In my humble opinion, I think that only 2 of these perks are even worth considering. That being Relentless Strikes and Eager Edge. We already know how good Relentless Strike is because there is not a single damage sword in the game that doesn't use Relentless Strikes. It is just the best perk all around. Just getting that extra ammo to keep you in the fight for longer is helpful for so many more reasons than I can even talk about. And Eager Edge. We know on Vortex Frames that the initial player velocity when using Eager Edge is much higher than when using any other sword frame. So what that means is that when you first click the swing button to use your Eager Edge, your initial player velocity is going to be higher than any other sword that can roll it, which means in theory you're going to be able to go a little bit further or a little bit faster with Eager Edge. But more often than not, I feel that Relentless Strike is going to be the best in-slot option for Column 3. I do see some arguments for Chain Reaction, even though it's a Vortex Frame sword. Having a Stasis Explosion could be nice, maybe Thresh, but you're not really using this as a mobbing weapon. You're using this as a champion / major burst DPS weapon against big targets that need to die quick and up close. And that's why I don't think that Pugilist or Attrition Orbs are going to be any better. Now, for your perk 4 column perks, we're looking at a couple things. Cold Steel, One for All, Collective Action, Permeability, Demolitionist, and Bait and Switch. Right off the rip, I'm just going to say it, Demolitionist and Permeability, I'm sorry, these perks are less than useful on a sword. Permeability, because you don't really want to be changing the element of the sword. Demolitionist, I know it's a little bit more effective on heavy weapons. Really, you want the big damage perks that are coming out of perk 4, especially considering Bait and Switch. Now, Bait and Switch is currently not fixed on these community research tabs, but it is only dealing 30% increased damage for 10 seconds. Now, there is another option in One for All. One for All is still 35% damage increase. However, it's a little bit more finicky to get activated. I feel that One for All is going to be much, much better when just dealing with casual activities, because you don't need to do damage rotations. You can just hit 3 quick enemies and get the One for All perk, and you're getting that 35% increased damage for 10 seconds. A little bit easier to activate One for All as long as there is a group of ads, which Vortex Frames are very suited to dealing with. Another perk that I'm looking at a lot is Cold Steel. Cold Steel, there really hasn't been good opportunities to use this before now, even though this perk was added in like Season 15. Also, finally, Collective Action. I don't think Collective Action is going to be as good as any of the others. However, you get your 20% damage increase on the sword for 7 seconds. That gets refreshed every time you're picking up a Stasis Shard, and assuming that you're running a Stasis subclass, I can see the arguments for Collective Action, but Collective Action is a in the fray type of perk, the same as One for All or Bait and Switch. It's just a little bit less effective. Now, where does that leave me in terms of what I think is going to be the best for perk column 4? Basically, if I can combo either Relentless Strike and Cold Steel with any of the 3 major perks, that being perk 4, Cold Steel, One for All, or Bait and Switch, I think those are all going to be fantastic options. So that's that for the main perks for the sword. I think that the role I'm excited for the most is as follows: Hungry Blade, Swordmaster's Guard, Relentless Strike, and Bait and Switch. Even though One for All is a little bit better for boss fights where there's only a single target, I think Bait and Switch could be better more often than not. Moving on to the actual mods of the sword, this thing can only get the Impact Masterwork. It's going to give you that little bit of extra damage. That's why I prioritize the ammo capacity aspect of the sword, because you're just getting the 10 extra impact plus all the extra stats from having a Masterworked Adept weapon. Now, for your Adept mods, if you're getting this Adept, the only thing you're going to be running, in my opinion, is Adept Big One spec. This is just going to give you an extra 7.77 repeating % damage to Majors and Ultras. That being, it just basically combines Boss spec and Major spec. So you're dealing a little bit more damage to pretty much everything. So that's it. I feel like that was an exhaustive look at the Slammer on every perk combination, every perk possibility. This is farmable in 30 minutes as of the time I am making this video. It'll be farmable at the weekly reset, Tuesday, March 19th, 2024. The strike this week is going to be the Corrupted. You already saw me go over all of that in the previous section of the video. If you just skip to the very end to see the roles in the Slammer, I recommend going back if you don't know how to farm the Corrupted efficiently. That, and have a great day. Farm your Slammers. Let me know what roles you're excited for in the comment section down below, and I hope each and every single one of you has a great day. Thank you for watching.